Hello and welcome to the viewers of this video. This is the Orange Fan here, bringing you another entry for the franchise discussion category. This video will be dedicated to the recap and thoughts for issue 13 of the Young Justice tie-in comics, and the penalty. We begin this issue at Gotham City on August 27th with the scene that ended the previous issue, Clayface surprise attacking 5 of the 6 Young Justice team members in the sewers. After defeating the young heroes, Clayface makes his escape, and Batman contacts Aqualad for details on the progress of their mission so far. Kid Flash also questions why Artemis isn't joining them on this particular mission. The next scene takes us to Star City, and we find out that Artemis is in a police station. More specifically, 2 police officers have Artemis sit on a bench, and it turns out Icicle Jr. is also sitting on this particular bench. Artemis and Icicle Jr. seem to vaguely recognize each other at first, but then they refer to each other by their names. Artemis uses the name Cameron, which is the first civilian name of Icicle Jr. It turns out that Artemis and Icicle Jr. do know each other because of their fathers being acquaintances with one another. Artemis then questions Icicle Jr. about the crime that he committed on Independence Day, the 4th of July. At a later point in time, Artemis is now on a rooftop, and she's talking to Green Arrow. More specifically, Artemis explains that Icicle Jr. wanted to tell her more than he ended up telling her, but what he did tell her was still very significant. Icicle Jr. told Artemis that if she's going to be sent to juvie, she should actually petition to be tried as an adult. Artemis's response to this was that she could end up in Belle Reve if she were to be tried as an adult, and Icicle Jr.'s response to this was simply a smile. Green Arrow compliments Artemis for completing this particular mission, and Artemis thanks Green Arrow, but she also adds that she never wants to participate in a mission like this ever again because she joined the Young Justice team to become a hero, not a snitch, in her words. So we're back in Gotham City now, and the other 5 members of the Young Justice team are trying to look for Clayface yet again. And 4 of the 5 team members for this mission are trying to think of a plan of action, and they end up deciding that maybe they should split up to cover more ground. And they're confident that Clayface won't be able to surprise them anymore now that they're familiar with his tricks. Aqualad is once again zoned out, so when the other 4 members of the team question him on his thoughts on their idea for their next course of action, Aqualad still isn't fully paying attention, so he gives the go-ahead to this plan without really thinking it all the way through. Meanwhile, Alfred and Batman are in the Batcave, and Alfred is watching Batman study a sample of Clayface that he was able to take with him after he, Batman, and Robin had fought Clayface earlier. Batman is confident that he can stop Clayface with a taser. He just needs to figure out which frequency to use. And the next series of scenes in the issue actually detail Clayface managing to catch the 5 Young Justice team members by surprise yet again. What happens is first, Superboy finds a trail of clay that leads to an abandoned warehouse, and Clayface disguises himself as Miss Martian, and he's able to defeat Superboy rather easily. He then impersonates Superboy and he contacts the other members of the Young Justice team on this mission to meet up at the abandoned warehouse. So one by one, Clayface continues to surprise the other members of the Young Justice team. First, he disguises as Superboy when Miss Martian arrives, and he manages to catch Miss Martian off guard. Next up is Kid Flash, and Clayface disguises himself as Miss Martian to catch Kid Flash off guard. And then Robin is the next one to be caught off guard by Clayface, but Clayface actually disguised himself as two copies of Kid Flash. So at first, Robin thinks it's, which Kid Flash is the real Kid Flash, but the answer is neither. So he's caught off guard by Clayface pulling this particular trick. So that just leaves Aqualad left, and at the last minute, Aqualad is able to catch that Clayface is impersonating Robin. And Aqualad is thinking to himself about how it was foolish of him to kind of agree to the split up plan when dealing with an enemy that can change their appearance and disguise themselves as any other individual. And eventually it leads to the scene that started episode 8 of the TV series, Downtime, with the other Young Justice team members defeated and unconscious, with Aqualad about to be finished off by Clayface. But then Batman arrives, and he's able to use a taser on Clayface, and he found the frequency needed in order to stop Clayface. So the next scene takes us to Mount Justice, and the issue ends with a scene that was also in Downtime, the 8th episode of the TV series. Namely, the scene where Batman tells Aqualad that while Aqualad can divide his time between the surface and Atlantis, he can't divide his mind between the surface and Atlantis. So he wants Aqualad to make a decision on whether he's on board with the Young Justice team and their missions 100%, or if he should just walk away from it. And he wants Aqualad to make his decision sooner rather than later. And like I said, that's how we end the issue. So there you go. We've now discussed part 3 of this 3-part story from the Young Justice tie-in comics. And like I mentioned before, this 3-parter, I guess you could say this 3-parter is, in general, about Clayface's origins. Part 1 of the issue ended with Clayface emerging from the Lazarus Pit, now as Clayface. Part 2 detailed how Matt Hagen became Clayface in the first place, and then Part 3 details what led to the Young Justice team being defeated by Clayface, and which started episode 8, Downtime, with Batman stopping Clayface and telling Aqualad that he needs to get his head in the game if he intends to still be a part of the Young Justice team and continue to lead the Young Justice team on their missions. And even though that detail with the Young Justice team trying to look for Clayface was the main objective or the main plot line for this particular part of the story, Artemis's story was also covered, because the other big plot point was why Artemis didn't join the rest of the Young Justice team on this mission. And we figure out what Green Arrow meant when he said they would like to place Artemis under arrest. In actuality, they just thought that because of Artemis and Icicle Jr.'s families being in the family business, and they may have already knew about Artemis and Icicle Jr.'s familiarity with one another, they were hoping that they could figure out something regarding the incident from the first episode, Independence Day, where the four ice-themed villains made simultaneous attacks throughout the United States on the 4th of July, Independence Day. And this actually ties into the 11th episode of the TV series, Terrors, where, Terrors deals with two of the Young Justice team members, Superboy and Miss Martian, going undercover in Bel Rev to figure out what the plan was, why the ice-themed villains would want to get arrested and go to Bel Rev, because they thought it couldn't be a coincidence that 4 ice-themed villains planned attacks on the same day at different locations in the United States. So this ties into that. So while this issue's main plot point tied into the 8th episode, Downtime, the subplot actually tied into a later episode, Terrors. So that explains how the Justice League came up with the plan to have 2 members of the Young Justice team go undercover in the episode Terrors. And having Artemis and Icicle Jr. know each other as kids, like, I guess you could argue they were friends in a sense, even though they have different morality, or like they're on different sides of the good and evil conflict, Artemis being one of the heroes and Icicle Jr. being one of the villains. I think, many fans suspect that's probably meant to be a nod to the fact that in the main DC comics, Artemis and Icicle Jr. actually married each other and they had an offspring together. And so that might have been a reference to that, or many fans are confident that's a reference to that. I'm pretty confident that was a reference to that too. And this subplot also helped to flesh out Artemis's character more, because while Artemis did agree to take part on this particular mission, she made it very clear to Green Arrow that she wasn't happy about partaking in this particular mission, because as she said in the tie-in comic issue, she joined the Young Justice team to be a hero rather than a snitch. But the good thing is that later stories, or stories set later on in the timeline in season 1, they do show us that Artemis, while understandably not happy about partaking in this particular mission, she doesn't hold it against Green Arrow or the rest of the Justice League for that matter. So even though she had her grievances with partaking in this mission, she isn't angry at Green Arrow about partaking in this mission. Because we do see that Artemis still has a very powerful bond with Green Arrow as his apprentice, and him being her mentor. Like, they're still on good terms with each other, even though she wasn't happy about this particular mission. And that actually helps to show a difference with Artemis's bond with Green Arrow compared to Green Arrow's bond with his other apprentice, Red Arrow. Because we do see that Red Arrow kind of took out his frustrations towards Green Arrow, or he seemed to hold it against Green Arrow with certain grievances of his. Artemis, in contrast, while she does have her grievances, she doesn't hold those grievances against Green Arrow. So that kind of helps to show different character dynamics, not just how Artemis's dynamic with Green Arrow is different with Red Arrow's dynamic with Green Arrow, but it also kind of helps to show how Artemis does see Green Arrow as a better role model than her father. Because, and even season 2 does touch up on this too, where Red Arrow admits that he didn't always show it, and he did kind of take certain things out on Green Arrow, but he never thought of Green Arrow as a bad person, and he does appreciate Green Arrow as his mentor. And he tries to assure Green Arrow that Artemis also thought very highly of him as a mentor. So that was a nice detail. It kind of helps to show more of Artemis's characters and to show a compare and contrast with Artemis's dynamic with certain characters, and how other characters have different dynamics, because that does happen in real life. I mean, your dynamic with one person could be vastly different compared to another person who has a dynamic with that particular individual as well. Like that is true. Like everyone may have different their how they interact with the same people can be different depending on which individual is interacting with another individual that they mutually know. And this also clarified something. I admit I thought Artemis was on the. I thought Artemis later joined the rest of the Injustice team on the mission for Clayface, but that turned out not to be the case. Looking back on it, the start of episode 8, Downtime, the scene that shows most of the Injustice team members being defeated, I do remember that scene happening very quickly, so that's probably why I didn't catch Artemis not being there. So I do admit I was mistaken. I thought Artemis eventually joined on this particular mission, but she didn't. She didn't join the mission after finishing up the mission that she was given by Green Arrow. Or yeah, after she completed the mission that she received from Green Arrow, she did not join the rest of her teammates for the Clayface mission. So that helped to clear it up at least. The tie-in comics did help to clear that up, and yeah, so because yeah, I didn't catch that initially. I admit that, and well, yeah, we all make mistakes, but it's good that we have the tie-in comics to clear that up. And otherwise, yeah, I think that's about it for now. So overall, I did think part 3 was Part 3 helped to finish off the Clayface 3-parter pretty well, like I said, because it not only tied into Downtime, the 8th episode, but it also tied into the 11th episode, Terrors, because of Artemis's subplot. And it did help us, the issue did help us to see more of Artemis's character and how her interactions with certain characters are compared to other characters who might have interactions with those same characters. And yeah, I think that's it for now. So there we go. Yeah, for the next couple of issues are going to be 2-parters, but we will get another multi-parter that's not a 2-parter eventually. We'll cross that bridge when we get to it. But for now, yeah, there we go. As of this video, we've now discussed issue 13 of the Young Justice tie-in comics on this channel. Take care, and until next time.